Welcome aboard. We will be calling at the following principal stations.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Travel Jack's Journeys. Now on today's journey we are doing a tour of York, or as the French would call it, Tour de York. Never mind about that. What we're doing, we are heading up to York on the 0732 Northern Service to Hull, taking that train to Gilberdyke, going at Saltmarsh and Gilberdyke, and then we're on the 809 Northern Service to York, going at Eastington, Howden, Selby, Church Fenton, no sorry, not Church Fenton, Sherburn Hamlet, then Church Fenton, and then York. We're due into York at 08:59. Now, while I was in York today, we are going to have a ride on the York City Sightseeing tour bus. Now, I've actually recorded this after the journey happens, and as you will see, the journey will not go according to plan. Little spoiler alert for you. Yeah, it didn't go well. Never mind. Let's see the train arriving into Goole, and I shall see you on board that train. However, this is filmed after it, so technically I've already done that journey. Never mind, see you on that train at Goole Station. Here comes my train. This is the 0732 Northern Service to Hull. We'll take this train to Longridge, Gilberdyke. I do apologise for the noise in the background. It is 1:52 time. It's 1:08. 9:10. I think I have to do one of these.
This is Goole.
operating 732 Northern Service to Hull, taking this train as far as Gilberdyke, calling at Saltmarsh and Gilberdyke.
Gilberdyke.
Right, it is 7:45 here at Gilberdyke. Now this is where we change on the journey up to York, but when we come back we change at Doncaster. We basically reverse here. Basically we've come off from the junction on the left and we're going straight on. So this is basically where we reverse, head up to York. So I'm going to cross over to the other platform and go and board the 809 Northern Service to York. That'll be coming at Eastington, Howden, Selby, Sherburn Helmet, Church Fenton and York. I got it right this time. So I'm now going to cross over to the other platform to board that train. Here comes my train. To be honest, this will make quite a nice change. It's a 170. Usually it's the class 155s on this line, but not today. It's a 170. And it is 17478. We're now departing Gilberdyke. The next stop is Eastington. So this is a nice change, 170, 478. Now usually this is class 155s on the Bridlington to York via whole service, except when I did it last time, I had a 158 to York and I came back on a 170. I don't mind, if you want to watch that episode, click up there to watch. Let's continue the journey on, so I'll do a little bit of filming, probably in the Howden area to restart. We're now departing Howden. The next stop is Selby. Shortly we're arriving at Selby. We've just entered the Balby Loops, which means we're going to go over Selby Swing Bridge in a minute.
Approaching Selby, ladies and gentlemen. If you're leaving the service here, do ensure you have all your personal items belonging to you and leaving the train today. Always taking care when stepping down the platform edge. Can't see anything suspicious, please report it to member of staff. Alternatively, text British Transport, please on 61016. Selby, your next station stop.
We're now departing Selby. The next stop is Gilberdyke.
welcome aboard if you've just joined the service at Selby. We go on to York. We get Sherburn, Church Benton and York. Once again, take the opportunity to ride passengers. Please ensure you keep all your personal items and belongings with you at all times while on board this morning. If you happen to see anything suspicious, please report it to myself back up through the garages, and do take a few moments to read the onboard safety notices. Thank you.
Now you probably saw that there was a pacer bus in there. That's probably the best place for a pacer bus actually, unless you like pacers. And also there was a few X-Grid Angular Dusty Bends. 3, 2, 1. Can't do the finger thing. I think that was a game show. If you know, comment below. We're just approaching Sherburn in helmet. But yeah, quite nice to see Gascoigne work. I tried to do it last time, but the guard was having a chat with me. Let's continue the journey. We're now departing Sherburn Inlet. Next stop will be Church Fenton, which I shall do a bit of filming once we arrive into York, probably when we join the East Coast Main Line. There's the York sign, which means we're just arriving to York where this train terminates.
Ladies and gentlemen, now approaching York where this service terminates. So I'd just like to remind passengers to please ensure you have all your personal items and belongings with you when leaving the train today. As always, do take care stepping down on the platform edge. So make sure you keep all your luggage, personal items both sides of the station and about. If you do happen to see anything suspicious looking, please do inform a member of staff. Alternatively, text the British Transport Police on 61016. So this is York, your next and final destination. Thank you.
Right, we're here at York, it's now 9 o'clock. Now, usually this is where I'd be ending the filming if I was doing one of the regulars, but this is a trial run, so we're going to go and do the York tour bus. So welcome everyone to York. It's been a while since we've had a proper look around. To be honest, it's been a while since I've actually been on the tour bus. So I shall head over to the tour bus soon. I shall see you around that area. We're going to do some bus spotting in the area as well. Not sure what the plans are as well, but we've got to be on that 1803 train back. Just going to get that to Doncaster. So I shall see you all later. Right, we are now at 10:30. We're currently walking around York city centre. I've just done my hours bus spotting because I wanted to film all the city sightseeing tour buses. I'm currently on the way past York, Minster, Wilby to go and pick up the city sightseeing tour bus. So we're going to go have a tour of York, and for me it's been quite a while since I last did this tour bus, so it'd be quite nice to have a ride on it. So I'll do some more filming of the sights of York. I think little Jack will like this shot. Good morning. Going to do the tour bus? Good there. Do you like York? Of course he does. Except he's not from here, he's from Ironbridge in Telford. So here we are at the Minster, which is one of the reasons why people come to York. I personally don't. I come for the trains and the Railway Museum. Why, that's because I volunteer at the Railway Museum. if you do want to visit York Minster. I don't know how much it costs. Right, we're down at the Minster. Now, just behind me is the road train stop. That's where you can pick up the Railway Museum's road train. Basically takes you to the Railway Museum. You'd have to check on their website for the timetable. The link is on screen now. So if you want to go and check it out, click on that, type it in Google, find out when the road train's running. I believe it's £3 each way and for an adult and £2 for children. That's what I've been told. And yeah, so what we're going to do soon, we're going to head over to the city sightseeing tour and have a ride on that. Right, we are at stop 1 for the city sightseeing tour, which is just behind me. There are 14 stops and it takes roughly an hour to get around. If you do want to have a ride on it, have a look on City Sightseeing's website for the details.
So we're going to head out of the city through the walls here into an area known as Boovum. Now, it's comes from the old Scandinavian word booth or tent, basically. It was a tent city, a kind of shanty town, if you will, back in the day. However, of course, you won't see any evidence of that now. That was mostly burnt down, in fact, by the Scots, and we've had a bit of an up and down relationship with the Scots. You may hear a rumour that it's actually illegal to shoot a Scotsman from the walls of York. It's not true.
Aww.
No, don't try it, basically. Now we're heading onto a road called Gilberdyke. Now, gate is the old Viking word for street, from the word gata. So if you see a street in York that ends in the word gate, it's a Viking street, and the gates are called bars, as I mentioned earlier on, from the old root word for barrier. So the streets are called gates, the gates are called bars, and the bars, of course, are called pubs, which confuses absolutely everybody. So if you head down Gilberdyke, keep an eye out to the right, and in just a moment, you'll see something that's a little bit odd. Some of the windows are being bricked up. Now, why would you brick up a perfectly good window? Well, it dates back to the time of the Georgians. The taxman had a plan, you see. I'll tax you based on how many windows you've got. It makes a certain sense, because if you've got a bigger house, you've got more windows and more cash. However, it didn't take people long to work out where you can actually save a bit of money by bricking up a couple of windows. So as you look at some of these windows here, for example, on the upper stories, have been bricked up. That's just, they could pay less tax that way. But the thing is, if you brick up a window or two, you lose daylight. Hence the phrase daylight robbery, which is still in use today. So that's where it comes from. Now you'll see this in other places as well around England, but York having more old buildings than a lot of cities still do. Of course, it's more obvious here. Now, the church of St Giles is where the street got its name. It's just down the end here would have been where the church would be by the traffic lights. However, now it's the Salvation Army building. The original church was torn down in 1539. There's the dissolution of the monasteries on the Heavy Road. However, it's still an active place of worship, so St Giles probably wouldn't mind too much. And York, in fact, has over 20 church buildings still. We used to have over 40 back in medieval times. So lots of churches you'll see around the city as you go about, many quite old. Looking ahead though, we also have York St John University, one of our two universities in fact. So a bit greedy in that respect, we do have, well, at least one of everything, certainly more than one of most things. So York St John, only founded as a university in 2006, before that was just a college. The other university on the far side of York is called York University. As we go around the corner, we're heading to Lord Mayor's Walk, and our Lord Mayor is in fact able to sit in the House of Lords and make legislation for this country. It's not just an honorary title. So there we go. Now, traditionally, the Lord Mayor of York is only Lord Mayor for a year, but his wife remains a Lady Earl, so that's very nice for her. Her for the job. So the university there on the left, of course, and the medieval city walls on the right. You see, this is called moat side, of course, because he's been moat all the way around the walls. The earth embankment was added by the Vikings in the year 866 when they invaded, and after that the medieval walls that you see today were added in the 1200s. Over the top of the walls you see York Minster, the jewel in York's crown you might say. It's the largest Gothic cathedral in the north of Europe, and it took 252 years to build. They finished it in 1472, 20 years before Christopher Columbus set sail for America. Although he was actually looking for him here, he just got lost. The Vikings got there before him anyway. So there we go. However, they say even though it took 252 years, it's never really been finished, and they never put a spire on top of the tower. The reason for this is because they were unable to do it. The tower itself weighs 16,000 tons, and the old foundations just couldn't support the weight of the spire. They tried a couple of times, kept falling down, so they decided it was against God's will. Now it's been basically reinforced, and they can actually add a spire if they want to, but it would change the look of the building too much after so many centuries here in York. It's also one of the few cathedrals in York that has its own police force. One of the oldest police forces in England. It predates the Metropolitan Police. That. Now we're going to go around the corner to the left in just a minute, and as we do, look to the right, you're going to see Monk Bar, the tallest gateway in the city of York. The statues on top are known as the Wild Men of York, and legend has it they will throw their boulders down to defend the city. Of course, they haven't done defence. But also the working portcullis there that actually works, the only working portcullis left in York. So walk underneath and look at the spikes above your head, but then remember that the mechanism is very, very old. That's what I'll say. Also inside there's a small prison, so if you do get a chance to go inside there, don't get locked in. Now, Richard III actually had the gateway hired. He was actually only the same height as the other gateways before. And he was actually quite a popular monarch here in York, even though it's a controversial choice. You may have seen a play like Shakespeare, now is the winter of our discontent. He was portrayed as a villain, but of course, Shakespeare was writing to the winning side, but the Tudors, of course, killed Richard III. He was the last king of the House of York, you see. His dad was Duke of York, and his son became Prince of Wales here, young Prince Edward, behind York Minster in the old Bishop's Palace. So he had a strong connection to the city and actually wanted to be buried here, he said, after he died. However, he was found in Leicester, and sadly he's been interred there, so many Yorkshire people were not happy about that. Oh well, you can't win them all. Now we're heading down towards the River Foss, the smaller of York's two rivers. Now having two rivers is both a good thing and a bad thing. It can be good for defence and for trade. Sadly, we do get lots of flooding in York. It's one of the things we're famous for. Not one of the things we want to be famous for, but we are anyway. Every year we have some flooding in York. We had some flooding not so long ago, and we all know that again. But in 2015, the worst flooding that hit York in recent times had this whole road completely underwater. You couldn't drive down it. All the flats on the left-hand side had to be completely evacuated. It's also how the Vikings managed to invade us. They sailed up the rivers. So all rivers go to the sea. We thought we were safe here in York, but there were such good sailors the Vikings managed to make all the way up here. On the right we have a car park for Sainsbury's supermarket in Kite. And when they were building this, they made a rather grim discovery. Hundreds of skeletons underneath the car park. So what did they do? Well, they called in the archaeologists, of course, and then they called in the chief rabbi, because they found out it was a medieval Jewish cemetery. Now the rabbi said, well, the most sensible thing to do is to leave the bodies where they are. So they reconsecrated the ground and built the car park on top of them. So all the bodies are still there. They estimate there might be 1,000 skeletons underneath that car park. But if that sounds grim or a bit implausible, don't worry. This is over 500,000, possibly 3/4 of a million skeletons buried underneath the city streets of York. We had 50 cemeteries in medieval times, and the city's been here for nearly 2,000 years. So this is why we're the most haunted city in Europe. Or so they say. You can take that with a pinch of salt if you want to.
That explains the
ghost story. On the right-hand side we have the River Foss again. We're just going over a bridge here. And at the end of the walls, you see here, this is the end of the section that you get on from Monk Bar. Now the reason why the walls end here isn't due to any demolition work at all. In fact, when William the Conqueror came here, 2 years after the Battle of Hastings, he came up here in 1068, he found the city was actually in a bit of a bad state. Lots of buildings were dilapidated, lots of people had left the city with the wars that were going on, and the walls had started to fall down, so he had the walls rebuilt. However, when he got to this section, he didn't bother because he had the river dammed up and created a massive man-made lake in this whole area. stretching to about a mile down the road from here, known as the King's Fish Pool, because it stopped full of fish for his larder, for his table, for his troops and everything. So it became a large fish pool basically. There's also an navigable fence, so nobody could get across this section anyway. However, if you want to walk along the walls, it takes about 2 hours to do the whole circuit, and if you're worried about finding the next section, there's actually a map at each end, which will tell you how to get to the next bit. On the right you've got St Cuthbert's Church. Now the building here is 15th century, but there was an older church here mentioned in the Domesday book between 1086. Legend has it there's a hidden tunnel going beneath the road over to the next building. If it was ever there though, it has been filled in though. But we have this building here, this wood timber building dating back to 1417 on the left, known as the Black Swan Inn, or the Muckle Inn to some locals. This belonged to William Bones, one of our Lord Mayors in fact. He was also the son of the Lord Mayor. Now, as we look down here on the left, we've got a building site, which is actually a site of our archaeological dig up to 2012. So, we're heading to stop number 6 up this coast for those who want to get off here. Yes. And this is a stop for the Shambles as well, and for a Goody or Big Centre. From here, of course, you can get also to Fossgate, which is where the Merchant Adventurers Hall is dating back to 1357. But the building you see on the left is much more recent. It's called Stonebow House, and in fact is voted the most ugly building in York back in the day, and actually the second most ugly building in England. It's a bit of a carbuncle, as Prince Charles might have called it, architecturally speaking. Take care getting off the bus. Hope you enjoy your day in York. No problem. Now directly ahead there's a much nicer building called St Crux. It's a parish hall nowadays, but it used to be a church on that site. One of the largest churches in York, in fact, with a big Italian-style tower, very ornate, very decorative. Unfortunately, it wasn't very structurally sound. It started to literally fall off, which is quite a worry to the people worshipping the church. So eventually, it was demolished, bit by bit, until eventually all that was left is a small church hall you see today, which is still used occasionally for various church services like Christmas. On the wall there, next to St Crux, you've got a sign saying Whitmore Gate, which is the shortest street in York, but it has the longest and silliest name. It starts from where you see the sign, goes just past the newsagents, which you see there, and the patisserie next door, and that's it. That's the entire length of the whole street. And it would have only been as wide as where the bicycles are parked there as well. So it would have been a very short, very narrow street in fact. But beyond that, much more famous street, the Shambles. Now Shambles, of course, very famous, goes back to 1086, which was in a Domesday book, so we know it's been there for over 900 years. It was a street of butchers back in the day, which is where it got its name from. See, there are 25 butcher shops in that one street, and the wooden counters or shelves were known as shammels, in fact, which is where it became shamble over time.
Thank you.
Now you might have heard the phrase, a bloody shambles. That's because all the blood from the butcher shops was allowed to trickle down the street there, and was only being cleaned at least once a week, perhaps. Now, of course, it wasn't just that. All the contents of the chamber pots and buckets from upstairs were thrown out into the street too. So, as I say, it wasn't cleaned very often, and would have been a rather unpleasant place by modern standards today. Certainly not very hygienic. Would attract all sorts of animals and vermin, which would, of course, spread disease. Which is how, of course, things like the plague get spread. But obviously, we didn't know those things back then. Now, in between the Shambles and Whitmore Gate, we have a Snickleway, we call them. It basically starts here, where the number 1 to 4 news is, runs down to the Shambles, and it combines 3 words, snippet, ginnel and alleyway, all meaning the same thing. So it's a bit redundant, but basically one of our local words we like to use. Just past the Terrace Bar on the left, you can get down to Fossgate. Very nice place to go, with lots of independent bars and restaurants. Fancy something to eat or drink later on today. Thankfully all still open now, after this current situation. And then, of course, the Merchant Adventurers Hall, which I mentioned earlier on. Hello, welcome aboard, sir. I'm Nigel. So yeah, the Merchant Adventurers Hall open to the public. Takes back to 1357, and do quite a nice cup of tea there as well if you fancy going and look around. Oh, careful, sir. That's it, So we're going to take a photo of the Shambles as we go past. It'll be on the right in just a moment. Quite a narrow street. We do say, in fact, that the narrowest point you can reach across and shake hands with a person on the opposite side. It may not strip the street, but they are very narrow, certainly the old 14th century buildings. Ahead of us we have a golden sheep next to Greg's the Baker's. That's the Golden Fleet, very famous pub dish from 1503. It's belonged to another Lord Mayor, John Peckett in fact. It's said to be the most haunted pub in York, and And of course this building here with York Gin inside was owned by the Herbert Bart family. Thomas Herbert Bart, born there in 1606, was the last servant of Charles I. And before he was taken away to be killed, King Charles gave him a gold watch, which is said to have started the tradition of giving a gold watch to somebody when they retire. This road is called Coppergate. It's a Viking street in fact, and quite appropriately down the road to the left, in between the Cafe Nero and the Paver's shop, is the Coppergate shopping centre, and that's where the Gilberdyke Viking centre is. Because when they were building the foundations for the shopping centre, they covered lots and lots of Viking finds in fact. So they built it directly above a genuine Viking site there, and you actually get to go down to the level of the archaeological would be. It's a Viking city is below ground level now, about certainly 6 feet or so below ground level. So we're heading down onto Clifford Street in just a moment, which is a bit of a clue as to where we're going to next. As we go down here, you see the Grand Opera House on the right hand side, which will hopefully open again soon. If you go down the hill, you get down to the river, of course, where you can pick the cruise boats up from. You can fancy a river cruise later on, and we have the York Dungeons here too. Now the river, just to tell you how high it gets when it floods, actually flooded the York Dungeons back in 2015. So the river got actually all the way up the hill to where we are. Thankfully it hasn't happened since then, but we always live in dread of these things in York. Very impressive building on the right, it's actually York's Magistrates Court, but they built big in those days, the Victorians did. So this is going to be stop number 7 for Clifford's Tower and the Castle Museum, also the stop for the York Dungeons and the York Centre, and for many other attractions like the Army Museum, for example, which is next to the Hilton. And just behind the Hilton, you can go to the Bancroft experience in Fairfax House, which is a nice Georgian town house. The Fairfax family were quite involved in the English Civil War, in fact, at this point related to Kate Middleton, who was married to Prince William. So there on the hill we have almost all that's left of York's Castle, certainly the most prominent part of the name. It was owned by the Clifford family, hence the name, who were custodians of the castle, and the current building dates back to the time of Henry III, back in 1245 when they first built it there. The original tower was made of wood during the time of William the Conqueror, built in 1068, known as the Great Tower. Hello, welcome aboard. Sadly that one didn't survive, as most wooden structures in York, it was burnt down during a northern uprising against the forces of William the Conqueror and the Normans there. However, the current building, you see, is undergoing restoration. It's been there for a long time, but needs a bit of a facelift. And I see a roof on, which is the first time it's had a roof since 1684 in fact. Now it's used for many different things. It was a mint for making coins, it was a prison, it was a seat of government, for many different things. But I'd like to say there's a great dramatic story about how it lost its roof. It's actually more of an embarrassing accident, in fact. See, St George's Day came around, there was a massive parade through the centre of York, and the cannons were set off in salute on this occasion. However, the gunpowder was stored in the tower there, and obviously they weren't paying attention, because there was no health and safety legislation back then. But after the cannons went off, suddenly there was another loud bang, and bang went the roof, bang went the man's job as well, no doubt was there, in the gas to the place. And since then we've had no roof, up until now. But if you look at the various barriers around the side where the building site is, it will show you what they're doing to the place. It will show you what it looked like before. There's even drawings of what it looked like in medieval times, because there's a lot more to the castle than you see now. There's massive walls all the way around, and a big moat around the base as well. So where we are now would have been underwater back in medieval times. Now there's of course many different things that have happened here over the centuries. There was a man named Robert Ass, he was a lawyer, and he led the pilgrimage of grace after Henry had the monasteries torn down when he broke away from the Catholic Church. He was very unpopular with a lot of people, certainly the Catholics of course. So Robert Ass led a great pilgrimage down towards London to try and stop them. People joined along the way, tens of thousands of people joined his crusade, and Henry decided to get a bit worried about it, so better do something about this. So when they got eventually halfway down to London, he eventually sent someone to speak to them and say, well look, if you stop what you're doing, the king will listen to what you have to say. You can all go home, no one's going to harm you. This of course was a lie. Henry VIII was not a very forgiving man, and Robert Ass was hung in chains from the wall of the tower, they say, and left there for a year and a day as a form of punishment, and also a warning to other people of what would happen for us if we disobeyed Henry VIII. Now, across the road on the opposite side, we've got the Tower Gardens, a nice place to go and sit and have a drink, of course. Nice coffee shop down there, and watch the world go by. And we have the Castle Museum on the left-hand side there. Hello there. The Castle Museum opens just a book of swap before. Now this used to be the site of York's prison, and just a warning to you all, the building you see directly here in front of us is still York's Crown Court, and the prison cells are still in use, so be very careful. But of course, it's not a prison anymore, hasn't been for a long time. And the museum is a museum of everyday life, it's not a museum of punishment and crime. Of course, you can visit the cells where some of the most famous prisoners were held in York, such as Dick Turpin, so I'll tell you more about later on, of course. But there are a whole Victorian street, which believe it or not, was actually carried stone by stone and rebuilt inside there. So it's a whole real street, a real shop, and everything there was actually as it would have been in Victorian times. So even a Victorian school. But you can go inside and see lots and lots of different things there too, and of course we've got the merry-go-round in the centre there. It's quite a nice place to visit too. But of course the Army Museum is behind the bus, next to the Hilton Hotel. If you look behind the Hilton Hotel, see the tallest spire in York, where St Mary's Church is. Worth going to the Van Gogh experience, there's a lot of art there. And of course the Gilberdyke Centre, which is just behind there as well. Going to the top of the Gilberdyke, and the dungeons just down the road too. Hello, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard, I'm Nigel. I think it might have changed drivers. He was Paul, but it might be somebody else now. Maybe changed. Still Paul, excellent, very good stuff. Paul the driver, excellent. Now just round from here, of course, the Tower Gardens leads you down to St George's Field. Now that was a popular site for fighting a duel back in the days. Back in the day, even though it was illegal, gentlemen of quality would settle an argument by fighting a duel either with a sword or a pistol, and that's how you basically get things done. However, it was strictly illegal. It did lead to one of York's more famous ghost stories. The Earl of Stafford there died fighting a duel, but people have still seen him there. It is very dead. York has many, many ghost stories, of course. I'm sure you'll find out there's many ghost tours in York running round this evening. There's even a tale of ghost bus. Watch out for that. We also have tales of witches. There was a woman executed here, Mary Bateman from Leeds, in fact. She wasn't actually executed as a witch, though she was known as the Yorkshire Witch, a very famous lady, and they say over 12,000 people came to see her execution. It was a very public form of entertainment back in those days. They'd even sell souvenirs, in fact. So there we go. So we'll be setting off in just a tick anyway. Got somebody else getting on board. Now one of the more famous, I would say criminals, but some people might say otherwise, was Guy Fawkes, born in York in the year 1570. He went to school here as well, in St Peter's School, which is still there. The only school in England that won't burn Guy Fawkes on top of a bonfire on November the 5th. They don't like to burn their old pupils, so they say. And what incited him to do what he did? Well, there was a lot of anti-Catholic feeling at the time. A woman called Margaret Clitheroe was executed here in York. York, for example, you may know, of course, she's still here, anyway, inside the bar convent, and got her hand holy road, which you can actually go see free of charge, or take it down to the chapel. But Guy Fawkes, yes, very infamous here in York, and we'll tell you a bit more about him as we go around. And if you look at the barriers around us, you can see what it looks like about the scaffolding on there. And there would have been a lot more to the castle. There would have been high walls, higher than the bus that you're on right now. Big moat all the way around as well. It will extend it all the way past where we're driving now too. That's a big figure on the left-hand side. Now the Castle Museum was in fact York's first debtor's prison, purpose-built for that reason. So if you were in debt back in the day, you couldn't pay your bills, well, you went straight to prison, don't have to go, don't let £200 in fact. It would have been very good, of course, if you knew £200 was in debt. You couldn't do a balance transfer or anything back in those days. So you stay in jail until your debts are paid off. You have to work. Now looking behind the hedge you can see here, there's trees on the left-hand side. It's part of the old castle wall. It did actually survive. It leads you around the drawbridge, which is where the gravestones are there. There's a drawbridge left across the motorway driving out now. Talking of stones, if you look at the Wetherspoons on the left-hand side, which is quite new of course, and then you look at the city walls directly in front of us, they're actually made of the same type of limestone. This York City Council now say anything built facing the walls has to be built of that type of stone to blend in. Also the other buildings predate that. Now on the right, this tower is called a postern tower, from the same root word as posterior, so it's a rear tower. If you look at the chute, that's for a different type of posterior, it's a toilet chute. So basically the guards on duty would have to answer the call of nature, as you do from time to time, and it would all go down into the moat around the castle, adding a bit of extra fragrance. I would say, and a bit of extra defence as well. So not much swim across, not easy anyway. Also, if you go to the Tower of London, although that motor's been filled in, the grass is very lush and verdant, which is the same reason, lots of natural fertiliser. On the left-hand side, you see a small cemetery for St George's Catholic Church. And down the far end, you see a gravestone with a path to it. That's the last resting place of Dick Turpin, who I mentioned earlier on, who was executed in York 7th of April 1739. Actually, ironically, arrested for horse theft while he was in the highway. He started out in Essex. There was nothing like the glamorous gentleman of the road, as you can say that later on. That was my lady, a kiss, no, nothing like that. He was a ruffian, basically. Started with a butcher, the practice, a poacher, then a burglar. When the gang who was with were arrested, he went on the run, became a highway robber, robbing coaches around the south of England. However, that got him into trouble with the law, of course, as it does, and eventually he fled to York and changed his name to John Palmer, which would have gone a lot better for him had he not been involved in some more horse thefts crept up here as well. So he's taken away to the race course in sadly that's the end of it. Or was it? Because actually the body was put on display. People paid a penny a time to come to the activities. So he's still taking money on people like that. And this is a place called Gilberdyke. It's the longest road inside the city walls in fact. After the old Irish quarter of York, it's built to the likes of Bowesmorel House, a wood-timbered building dating back to the 1400s, originally known as Kilmartin Lodging House. Now for 4 pennies you could get a bed there for the night. If you couldn't afford 4 pennies, it was not really good, more than a day's wage for some people. For 1 penny, they'd get a big rope, stretch it tight across the middle of the room, and flop across the road. It was known as a penny lead, and that's how you'd sleep till penny New York. Fortunately nowadays we have travel lodges for that sort of thing. Now directly ahead we have the complete gateway in the whole of England. You have to go to Poland or something like this. It's got the original gatehouse, which is now a coffee shop, and this tunnel here was for little bargain. It's a very expensive tunnel. And they've got gates at both ends, and a heavy portcullis at both ends weighing a ton. So basically, if you're trying to get in, you have to hack your way through the wooden gate, then you get through the heavy portcullis, and then you're trapped, shoulder to shoulder inside this tunnel. Can't really go very far, and then you can drop things down. You can put stones, boiling liquid, or the contents of the chamber pots, anything that you, including the kitchen sink, really, basically anything that could to stop you getting in. If you finally made it through the other side, through the other portcullis and the other set of gates, of course by then the army will have very hard to get in. Now this is the most modern section of city walls here on the right hand side. It ain't modern, it's built in the 1400s, so that's modern feel. But if you look at the top, actually it's not all original. The Victorians had demolished part of the city walls and actually rebuilt sections of it here. As you can see, the tops are very even and quite new by York standards. Now outside of the walls, or outside of York in fact, this county line where the city walls are, parts of Yorkshire, outside of this. The Barbican Centre here on the left will be open again to business fairly soon. I hope it's a place of entertainment anyway, and also you have of course the snooker championships here too. And also from the minor bar gates on the right, called Fisher Gate Bar, this has been known as Nout Gate. It was bricked up after a huge rise against taxation, so now on the right hand side you see this tower, it's a seahorse hotel with a sign there. It doesn't really look like a seahorse though, does it? I didn't know what a seahorse looked like, so the front end of a horse back end of a seesaw. Close enough I suppose. Now directly ahead we've got the Mecca Bingo. It used to be the old Rialto Cinema. It was played there in '64. Also John Barry, the famous film composer, James Bond theme tune, used to work there playing the organ. If we carried on ahead of the road, there we go to a place called Fulford, and the Battle of Fulford was in 1066 before the Battle of Hastings. Now it's actually very important because we were fighting the Vikings and we lost that. So the Vikings tried to retake York in 1066. So we had a rematch at the Battle of Stamford Bridge a few days later. We won that one, so 1-1. However, then we had to go like the Normans, and found the French and invaded. We had to march all the way down to Hastings, and we lost that one. But had it not been for the Battle of Fulford, well, history could have been different. It might have won. We have no French kings on the throne of England after all, so who can say? Now, if you look directly ahead, we come into the Mason's Arms pub on the left-hand side. It's a very patriotic pub. We've got the flag of Yorkshire flying there. If you look to the left, you've got the white rose, the red cross, the wings and the white rose there as well. It's a very patriotic English and Yorkshire pub there. We have also the flood barriers here on the left. We've got the River Foss and the River Ouse here, and down the far end, a large glass bridge marks where the main flood barrier is. Now in 2015, the mechanism failed. They had to literally open the floodgates. It was not a metaphor. They did it literally and flooded the whole centre of York to save the houses on the opposite side. On the left, we've got St George's also for being a nagging horse and wife. You've got to be careful making eye contact when I say that. Not making any passive expressions. Yes, witches were basically put in the Dublin schools to get a confession out of them. We didn't burn them here in York, you'll be glad to know. No. We hung them instead, so slightly more merciful. Down the river cruise boats there on your right hand side. You're going to get on from there. Now we're heading down the Gilberdyke Bridge, one of the 9 bridges, and on the right you've got, this is Bale Hill, where the site of York's second castle was. Nothing remains of it nowadays, unlike Clifford's Tower. It was never rebuilt in stone, it was only rebuilt of wood. So when it started to fall down, we didn't pay for the upkeep of it here. It was eventually left to fall to ruins. Now heading to an area known as Bishopgate, which leads up to Bishopcourt Road. Now the Archbishop of York was very high in the hierarchy of the church, but the monarch at the top, Archbishop of Canterbury, did that much. So obviously very high position there. He lives in Bishopcourt Palace, so it's nice castle, nice book, isn't it? So we're heading onto this road here, Nunnery Lane, formerly known as Baglygate Lane. Now the city expanded a lot during the Industrial Revolution, of course. New jobs were created, trains brought people here. And one of the major trades in York, even to this day, is chocolate. If you don't believe me, just a minute, we'll sign to prove it. But chocolate is still something very important to the people of York. We have the chocolate factories. This one here on the red sign, brown sign, the Roundtree Bar. So Joseph Roundtree was a great benefactor of York. He built a whole village for his workers called New Earswick. Gave them holiday pay, sick pay, things we take for granted, of course. And Roundtree Park was given to the populace as public land as well. We've got Victoria Bar on the right-hand side. It's not a genuine medieval gateway, it's only Victorian. And Queen Victoria herself was invited to come and open the gateway. She said they declined. There's this area known as Baglygate, which is Baglygate Lane, which is a part of York, which thought it was beneath her dignity to go to such a place. So heading down However, on the right-hand side you'll see, careful going down the stairs there, waiting to stop. On the right you see the top of Micklegate Bar, the crossing violating bar. So just keep your eyes peeled to the right as we go over the crossing. But before we get there, you get to the bar convent. You see the brown sign there? It's actually the oldest working convent in England. It's been going since 1686. It's still a working convent. Nuns are inside. But if you're looking for people in black and white habits, you won't see them. They wear pretty modern clothes these days, most of the time anyway. But there's actually a hidden chapel inside. Because back in the day, it was illegal to be a Catholic. Very dangerous to be imprisoned, even killed for being a Catholic. So inside the hidden chapel, there's 8 separate hidden exits and a priest line. So you could flee in different directions, or the priest could hide underneath the floorboards as well. It also has a hand of a Catholic saint, Margaret Woodrow, executed here in York for hiding Catholic priests. Genuine hands on display. Been there since 1586, in fact, the hand. And it's allowed their own skin and nail. Miracles have been said to happen inside there too, such as the appearance of St. Michael himself, who appeared here when the place was being attacked and was frightened off the attacking forces. So there's the bar convent within the Heritage Centre. Now directly ahead you might see, in the thing there, a painting of a large shiny green beetle. That's the tansy beetle, native to York. Very rare these days. They live on the tansy plant, which is dying out. So they don't grow that big, so don't worry, it's not going to attack the bus or anything like Godzilla. I hasten to add. We also have the punch ball on the right hand side. Now if you see a pub that called the punch ball is a link to the Liberal Party, the forerunners of the Liberal Democrats, because it's the meet upstairs in pubs and have punch at their meetings rather than drinking anything all the harder stuff, so they didn't get too tipsy during the meetings. Slightly ironic given the pub usually owner of Wetherspoons before, but we'll leave that one there. There we go, so we're setting off in just a minute. We also have the windmill pub directly ahead, and the mill does have its very own windmill, still working today down in Holgate, does still make flour as well. Those from the local artisan bakers who don't bring it to me. And just on the right you see Micklegate Bar, keep your eyes on that. That's the gateway for royalty when it enters York, historically speaking anyway. But they've actually asked permission to move into York. It's a self-governing city since 1212, very important city. So even Henry VIII himself. Now directly ahead of the train station in York, built in 1877, the largest one in the world that was first constructed by Thomas Prosser. Very impressive building. However, the original railway station is inside the city walls. As you can see on the right, you see the big archways. That's where the trains would come and go from the original train station. It was too small, however, eventually, so they had to build a much larger one you see on the left. You may also see different coloured milestone to theory points because it was bombed by the Germans in 1942. It was one of the key targets of the Baedeker air raid. Basically, got the Baedeker tourist guide and decided where to bomb from there. They went, yes, this York, we will bomb it. So they did. Although we found out decades later when they had a union of Luftwaffe pilots and the RAF pilots, bombed York. Sure, an obvious target being so big. And they used it as a navigational route, basically, because it goes off to different points of the cross, north and southwest. And they could use that to find where they were going, being so high. Anyway, thankfully the train station did survive, and if you don't blink too hard when you're watching the first ever Harry Potter film, it does double for King's Cross Station. We have the Royal York Hotel, as it was originally called, built the year after the train station opened. So it was built in 1878 by the same architects, built in the same stone, as you can tell. Nowadays it's known as the Principal Hotel, but many locals still think of it as the Royal York, of course. And in the gardens of the Principal Hotel, where you have the flags there, they found during the 1990s a Roman cemetery. They had a TV program called Time Team on Channel 4 with Tony Robinson, the acting presenter, and that was Baldrick from Blackadder. Well, they dug up the gardens there, found a stone sarcophagi, basically. This is obviously exciting. Some people had money to afford that sort of thing back in the day, and the coffins had been sealed shut by mud. So the body was so well preserved, they were effectively mummified, in fact. And it's like their own hair and teeth and everything, including a lady whose hair was neatly passable as well, passing by last girl in nearly 2,000 years old. But that's not the only things. Last December, in fact, when the railway station and they did some work on the floors, they found yet even more Roman bodies. So basically, we're all still here with this living room. However, it's not the only story, of course, because we're here near the train station. And although the Royal York Hotel had no real royal connection other than the name, Queen Victoria came to York by steam engine. Being a foreign, modern Victorian lady, of course. But she wasn't really stopping in York. It wasn't an official visit or anything. She was just on the way to Balmoral. This is just a stop-off along the way. Well, of course, when people found out she was here, the platforms were lined with people who wanted to meet the Queen. Of course, she had to show her face, and the rings and all that. So we invited her to one of our hotels for a nice afternoon tea. Very good, you might think. However, as it wasn't an official visit, some people, curmudgeonly people, objected to paying for it. And so at the end of the meal, she was presented with the bill. This offended Her Majesty, as you might imagine. She wasn't ordering yours, and she didn't want to come back to York again. And if you go to the Railway Museum, you'll see her train carriage inside there. It has nice velvet curtains, and allegedly, every time the train passed through York since then, the curtains remained closed. So you have to look at all the huge Yorkshire people. Similar incident happened in Bath. She was walking along, and people were parading past her. Your Majesty, Your Majesty, but somebody whispered, she's a bit shorter and fatter than I thought she'd be. Well, she got right up her nose, as you might imagine. So those are just two ways you can offend the monarchy if you ever see them. Don't criticise her weight, you're all put her on the road lockdown, and don't ask her to pay for anything because she doesn't even be carrying cash, which is nice for her. Now, back onto the subject, if you look by the traffic lights, just on the right-hand side, you see a small cemetery. Not many gravestones there nowadays, but it was a cholera cemetery. Now, I don't have to dwell on disease being as troubling times you're in right now, but I only mention it because the man who discovered the link between dirty water and cholera was from York. His name was John Snow, but not the guy from Denver. The older guy from Channel 4 News, Dr. John Snow, born on North Street, not far from here. He was actually in London when he made the discovery. He was educated and born here in New York, so we take a little credit for it. I'd like to give him the credit too, of course. Now, of course, you wouldn't go down to the River Ouse now and dip a cup in it and have a sip. Well, probably anyway, and out and boil it if you did. But he discovered it was the dirty water people were drinking, and found a way around it, of course. They improved the sewage system in London and here in York, saved many lives. Anyway, there's the graveyard as you go past. Now, there's another thing, more happier thing to talk about, a nice hotel coming up. Even grander than perhaps the Principal Hotel, just on the right-hand side. It's called the Grand Hotel. It's York's only 5-star hotel on the right. Now, up until 2010, it wasn't actually a hotel, believe it or not. It was actually the headquarters of LNER, or GNER, as it became known as well. It was the railway offices there from 1906 to 2008. However, if you want to do a bit of star spotting in York, that's the place to go. There's lots of things are made here in York, films and TV programmes, and lots of people stay there too. In fact, when Ellie Golding got married at York Minster, a lot of the people attending the wedding stayed there too. On the right, you've got the War Memorial, designed by Edwin Lutyens, who designed the cenotaph down in London. And directly ahead, if you were to go underneath the Low Bridge, you'd go to the Railway Museum. Now, it still remains free to go into it, you just have to book a slot now. due to COVID, the largest rail museum in England, over 100 different exhibits, including the Mallard, the fastest steam engine in the whole world, which could travel at 126 miles an hour, which might not sound fast by modern standards, of course, but their record has never yet been beaten by any steam engine ever. Also, we have, if it's not fast enough for you, the Shinkansen Japanese bullet train. I've probably mispronounced it, but there's only Japanese people on the bus, so I'll probably get away with that. Now, as we go further ahead, you see the archway there, and directly through the archway, you see a building opposite the Grand. That is now the headquarters of York City Council, but that's where the original railway offices would be, the original railway station, I should say, would have been. There is still a small section of platform and the original guardhouse as well. Now you have the statue of a gentleman here, a man called George Lehman. Didn't get a chance to mention him before, but worth mentioning. Basically, he was former Lord Mayor of York on 3 separate occasions, also Liberal MP for York and head of the railway station. And he still basically stands there to this day. However, it used to be a different statue, a man called George Hudson, a very similar character, also Lord Mayor of York, who was known as the Railway King. He had a bit of razzmatazz, he was a bit like Richard Branson back in the day. He built the first railway station here in York, but he was called the Bentley Cash at the time, so they changed the name to more respectable George York. So we go round through the walls here, you'll see next to the Grand Hotel, well not quite so grand, Malmaison that they're building, haven't quite finished it just yet. Bit behind schedule. Now Malmaison just means bad house in French, so it's a bit of an odd name for a hotel chain, but I've never quite understood why they chose it. But nevertheless, it'll be open at some point. It's getting a bit closer to completion. I think it was supposed to open last year, but obviously events got away from them, as you can imagine. Now heading over the bridge here, this is the LNER Bridge, built in 1863 in fact. And before the bridge, you pay a ferryman to get across. They lived in a small turret called Market Tower just on the left. So the ferryman or woman would sail you across the opposite side. There's some tree folks doing their tours, of course. And the tower is here, it's actually only she's a local lass. She does start as an actress here in York as well, and then she got mystery plays from York also. So there we go. On the left hand side, we've got the museum gardens here, open to the public. This is Victorian time. They've also got rooms of some areas out here, part of the old Roman quarters as well. And directly ahead we have York Minster again. If you look in the centre of the large window there, you'll see the heart of Yorkshire, so called, just a heart shape made of stone. But they say if you kiss your lover underneath that window, the love will last forever. It's not the first minster we have here, it's not even the second. It's the 5th church that's been on that site. The original going all the way back to the year 627 in fact. So there we go. A lot of history there, so well worth going inside. If you book, your ticket's actually valid for the whole year, so if you come back to York, you won't have to pay again. And I said I'd mention Guy Fawkes again, worth mentioning too. Just next to York Minster is St Michael of Belfry Church, where he was baptised in 1570. And just across the road from there is the Guy Fawkes Inn, where allegedly he was born. So, born there, baptised there, quite convenient for him. And then most people say he's actually born on a stone gate, not far from there. But either way, we'll let them have that one. He wasn't originally a Catholic, he was a Protestant when he was first baptised. His mother remarried a Catholic though, and he went to St Peter's School, which was run by people who were former Catholics, who were still secret Catholics of course. And 2 of the members of the Gunpowder Plot were former pupils there too. So it was a hotbed of Catholic activity here in York. So there we go. So lots of things of course helped light the fire and encouraged him to light the fire and get into the House of Parliament. He was also allegedly witness to the execution of Margaret Whitmore too. So we go down here past St Leonard's Place, we've got the Theatre Royal and then on the right hand side, which I'm glad to say is open again now, York Main Theatre. Beautiful building. If you look very closely at the top, you'll see a statue of a gentleman up there. That's actually a statue of William Shakespeare on the roof. It's been keeping watch on the place whilst it's been closed. Because all the world's a stage, and all the people are really closed. And then one of the plays, The Summer of Love, it's a season of plays going on for Nancy's Brother and Juliet. So there we have the King's Manor on the left hand side. We're back to Exhibition Square where it's all the parks are and stuff. So we're starting again very shortly. We've wanted to get up here there, of course. Nice cafe there. We also got halls with just very good ice creams. And if you want a walking tour, we've got the volunteer guides there. We do 3 tours right off your head.
Right, 11:41. That's your tour of York. First time we've done that in a while. That's by the city walls. What we might do, we might jump on the tour bus later actually. Since we've got a bit of time before our train this evening, Fantastic tour that was. I really enjoyed it. Actually, definitely well worth doing. If you're in York, going to the tour bus. Highly recommended. That was a lovely journey it was. Obviously, I might go and show you a few bits around York city centre. And so I shall see you all a bit later. I'm going to go and have something to eat. And then we might have a ride on the tour bus later. What I might do, I might go and walk around Museum Garden. Worth noting, the tour bus is not going past the race course at the moment. I'm not sure that's due to the current restrictions, or is that a permanent thing, I don't know. But at the moment it's not going past, well, particularly today, not going past the race course. So I'm going to have a walk around York city centre for a bit. So, as mentioned on the tour bus, that is William Shakespeare Bay. Because that's the Theatre Royal York, which is a theatre. I might go for a little walk on the City Walls if I can remember. But to be fair, I come up here quite regularly, so yeah, so it's been about 5 years since I last did that tour bus. We are going to go for a ride on some buses as well, because that's what we've done. This is probably going to be over the standard hour show, but to be honest, it's worth it because it's Tour of York. Right, here it comes. This is the Railway Museum's road train. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a little walk somewhere. We're actually going to head up to Monk's Cross and go and do some buses, because we haven't been on some buses for a while, so we'll do that. So we're going to head up to Monk's Spa. I'm only popping up there because my mother wants me to get her something from Asda, which is a supermarket. Typical that from my mother, ain't it? Right, it's 12:05. I'm here in Museum Gardens, or as my mum calls it, Squirrel Gardens. I want to stop for something to eat and then we'll resume the filming. We're probably going to walk over to the railway station and jump on a bus to Monk's Cross. Now, just before we do get up to the train station where we're going to get the bus up to Monk's Cross, we're just crossing over the River Ouse, which is oozing in history. In fact, city boats just turned up. We haven't got time to go on that today. We might do later on in the series. Yes, I can confirm it does flood, because when I was doing, well, I do a weekly stint at the Railway Museum, and I used to come up here on a weekly basis, and yes, I can confirm it does get quite high in place, which didn't get mentioned on the tour. That behind me is the Scarborough Rail Bridge. That basically takes the railway to Scarborough. This section of the city walls, because the city walls are just in front of me, are closed. So this must be one of the sections where it misses it out. But as I said on the tour, it takes about 2.5 hours to do the whole city walls. So we're going to head up to the station. I actually need to go and pop somewhere in the station because I've been since 6 o'clock this morning, and then after that we'll go and jump on a bus to Monk's Cross, which is one of the park and ride. I've got an All York Day ticket, which is valid on the park and ride today, and that's £4.90. It's quite a good ticket, that All York Day ticket is. So if you want to ride around on the buses in York, get the All York Day ticket. It's £4.90. It's valid on any bus except the racecourses bus, which is the 197, and not valid on the city sightseeing tours. Apart from that, it's valid on any other bus you like. Let's do a bit of bus speculation. This is one of the new Opta Metro Degas, which came into service recently. I don't know what that is on there, but I think it is former great. I think that used to be with York Pullman. think so. Yeah, so just walking around to this train station. Basically, so I can go a nice long ride on the bus up to Monk's Cross. That is the tour bus again. I don't know if this is the one they're called. Probably is actually.
You're missing. You're missing.
So that's one of the stops on the tour bus. I can't remember which number it is. But yeah, you can get any stop you like. So I'm now going to head up to the station and then go and get the bus to Monk's Cross.
The next stop is LNER.
So this is one of the new park and ride buses that we're going to catch. We'll go up to Monk's Cross on this. Nothing really much of there, but I thought I'd go for a ride on one of these buses. And when we get back, we might do the city sightseeing tour again. Depends how I feel.
Prices Lane. The next stop is Stoneborough. next stop is Sainsbury's.
It's just turned 20 past 1. We're here at Monk's Cross. Now this is mainly a retail park, to be honest with you. Nothing really much for you to come up here unless you want to ride on the bus. And so I got the number 9, which is the one of the park and ride routes. Now, I'll explain a bit more of that All York Day ticket. There it is. Don't know if you can quite see that, but I bought that on the Cities app this morning. But because it's All York Day ticket, it's technically valid on any route, which is worth noting. So I'm going to do what I need to do around here, then I'll catch a bus back into York City Centre. So I'll probably get the park and ride again when we get back to York City Centre. I'm not sure what I might do. I might have a break for a bit from filming. I might film it back on the bus as well, so bear with me. I'm just going to do some bits and bobs in Monk's Bar. So we're on the bus, we just left the shopping park. We're going to make our way to York Station. From there, I shall get another bus into York City Centre, because I like getting off at the train station. Now I'm going to have a ride on the tour bus so I can get some photos for my personal Facebook page. So I'll do some filming on this bus once we leave Monk's Cross Park and Ride.
The next stop is Monk's Train.
don't mix them.
Well, I said maybe 2 because it's cheaper, but you know.
Yeah. But like, don't mix them, so I think that would make it worse. And don't drink it through a straw.
Why?
Because you drink more people. And don't do any shots.
I think it's the shots that did it. And the chugging of the monster.
Yeah.
Because I said monster to make you dizzy.
Yeah,
So
you
maybe,
still did it.
maybe because I was already dizzy, it was like, no, we're going to make you mistake. I didn't quite want to go on the ghost coaster.
I want to go on a sightseeing though.
Me and Elton on it.
Yeah.
We say every single time we see it. Because it was really funny though. This is Sainsbury's. Also decided to be very frank.
I want to go on the boat one.
I feel like we need to do boat on Belarus as well.
When she comes up to London.
Yeah.
Now she's left us. I know.
Tell her she needs to cook, we can't tell her why.
All her stuff's gone from the bathroom as well.
Oh my god, so you got a space in the bathroom?
Not that we need it, but yeah.
The next stop is Stonebow, alighting at York City Centre. Stonebow, alighting at York City Centre. Thank you for travelling with your park and ride. When making your return journey, please have tickets and passes ready for boarding. Welcome aboard for your park and ride service number 2, Grants Cross.
Okay. Take it off. It's okay, you can get off first. You can change this. Like this. Yeah.
I'm going to take a break from the filming. I'm going to have a ride on the tour bus and take some pictures on my personal Facebook. So I shall show you in a couple of seconds for the return journey to Goole. Bye for now, and I shall see you in a couple of seconds. Welcome back, in fact welcome to York Station. It's time now for the return journey to Goole. It's going to be on the 1802 LNER Service to Peterborough. Taking that train one stop to Doncaster, good at Doncaster only. Due there 1825. Then we're on the 1905 Northern Service to Goole. Now, worth noting, because of the current situation, LNER you do need a seat reservation. Now I have got a seat reservation to board that service, so we shouldn't have any problems. Train's not even in yet, so when it does come in I'll show you which one it is. Sit back and enjoy this journey back to Doncaster and Goole. Basically what I've been doing all afternoon is riding on the tour bus. Before we go and get the Zoom and find out which one it is, let's say hello to our favourite locomotive. Hello Felix! Haven't seen you for a while. Lovely cat! Love that 68, and I've got a model of it coming soon. Right, over there is not an Azuma, instead it's Tornado, which we saw on the trial run. Not sure what it's doing at the Railway Museum. So, hello Tornado. So, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to walk down past Felix so you get to hear the lovely sound of Felix purring away. That's one reason why I love these 68s, because I love that 68, especially this one. Well, here comes an LNER Azuma, except that's not our train we're catching. since I got interrupted by that amazing Azuma, I'm going to walk down past Felix, then I'm going to walk over to platform 6 to catch my Azuma to Doncaster, because it should be in a like. I'll show you which one it is, because I think it's 2 5-car ones together. That's the end of the set. So that was your look at 68031, and this is what they call the Darth Vader end. I don't know why they call that. Answers on a postcard. Those postcards don't exist anymore. In the meantime, let's start talking. Let's go and find out what train we've got to Doncaster. Right, my Azumas are in. We've got 801, 104, 801, 107. Now one booked in on coach B, which is 801, 106. Not 107, sorry. Let's go and board it. We're only going one stop to Doncaster. We've got the seat reservation, so we have to be on this service. And this is 1802 LNER service to Peterborough as well. This is 801 107 operating the 1802 LNER Azuma Service to Peterborough, taking this train one stop to Doncaster. Right, I do apologise for not filming that section. What's just happened, we're now in Doncaster and it's we've jumped off 801, I think it's 222. I don't know, I'll find out in a second. Basically there's overhead wire problems between Peterborough and London King's Cross. So the train I was on originally got cancelled. So basically they said get on the next available service. It's Doncaster, which we was going to be meant to be on the 1905, but clearly we can't do that now. So we're now going to have to wait for the 1924 service, which is good. We've got that train because we'd missed the next that one. Game over. It would have been a 2-hour wait. Yeah. So we're here at Doncaster. Obviously, I do apologise for not filming the full journey back, but hopefully we will get a nice clean run on a future journey when we do this route. They're getting good at this, they are. 3 platform trains with about a minute to spare. Here comes my train. 1924 Northern Service to Bridlington, 170-472. Getting good at this. This is 170-472, operated in 1924, Northern Service to Bridlington, taking this train as far as Goole, calling it Goole only. Now, if we hadn't had those problems, we would have been on the 1905. But never mind, we go straight to Goole. At least we're on a train. We're now departing Doncaster. The next stop is Goole.
Welcome to the 1924 Northern Service to Bridlington. This service will be calling at Goole, Brough Hall, Cottingham, Beverley, Driffield and Bridlington. May I ask passengers to keep all your personal belongings with you and in sight at all times. Take monitoring safety information placed around the carriages. If you do become aware of anything suspicious, please report it to staff. The first stop will be Goole in approximately 20 minutes.
past 4 north. Goole, I realised on the train I went to Goole, this train continues to Bridlington via Hull. We're now arriving to Goole.
You're only to Goole, the next stop is Goole.
Right, I am back at Goole. We've got back here 15 minutes late, but that can't be helped. Now, I should have been on that class 170 over there. Not 170, 158. It's 910 actually. Yeah, basically what happened, because of the signal, the overhead wiring problems, we missed it, but luckily we had that train to fall back on, which is good. It's actually saved me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to head over to the Goole docks area and do a full review of today's show. Been an interesting one actually. So here's the train I should have been on if I'd got to Doncaster and been able to catch it, because what it does, this one comes in off the 1905, terminates here at 1930, goes into the sidings to let the 170 fill up, we've just jumped off, and then forms a service to Hull at 1952. And here it is. It would have been 158, 910. Shame. shame that we would have ended up on the same train we had this morning. Never mind, things can't be helped. But the main thing is we got back. Right, it is time to end this episode of Travel Check Journeys, which is the tour of York. Now, I did say I was meant to be doing this on York docks, however I didn't get time and I've been quite busy between then. So I've got to remember what happened is we got a train to Gilberdyke fine, then we had a 170 to York, then we did the York City Sightseeing tour bus. That was quite nice. It was going all well until we got to York Station. Went to board the train to Doncaster, sat there on it for 5 minutes. Then an announcement came over saying that the service had been cancelled due to electrical overhead wire problems between Peterborough and London King's Cross. So basically, LNER basically said, get any train you can. So we did. We got down to Doncaster, just missed the 1905 to Goole. So luckily there was another train at 1925. Yes, and particularly that got re-platformed with about a minute to spare. Well done Northern, or well done whoever's responsible for that. So whoever's responsible for re-platforming with it with 1 minute to spare, congratulations. I won't say what I was going to say after that, but got back to Goole, no problems whatsoever. That's it from me. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Details are coming up next, and I shall see you very soon for another episode of Travel Check Journeys. Click here to subscribe to Travel Check Journeys, and to watch the previous episode of Travel Check Journeys, click here.